Why, hello everyone. Welcome to the February 25th edition of Dead Reckoning Radio, where we sit around this old door turntable and hopefully successfully attempt to intelligently engage with critical cultural moments from a distinctly Christian perspective. I'm your host, Jay Friesen, and I'm in the studio as usual with our resident, right here, 30-second media mogul, Hadley Heath, and Dr. Brian Mattson.
Hi, everybody.
There's just nothing, I can't, I try as much as possible, Brian, to come up with a title for you, and something clever, and I can't do it. We are live today, so if you're listening to us on our 5-star rated podcast, sign up for our mailing list or follow us on any of our social media accounts to get notified of our next weekly live stream. Thank you to those of you watching live. Right now, I'm pointing at you. You guys are the best.
Good to see you, peeps.
You guys are the best. You can find all that information at our website, www.deadreckoning.tv. Today's political discussion will include the Nevada GOP caucuses, an updated outlook for the scrappy battle for the Republican Party nomination, followed, of course, by a look at our culture, specifically the debate surrounding the Zika virus and abortion being its solution. Finally, we'll close the show taking a look at capital punishment, the Pope's recent comments, and Christianity's teaching on the issue. As always, we'll interject our own thoughts, with games of wit and whimsy. Today, not the Onion News and fill in the blank, the Oscars edition, because we don't have anything substantive to say about the Oscars. A very special thanks to our sponsors, Alliance Defending Freedom, defending your right to freely live out your faith. If you'd like regular updates on the battle for religious freedom and sanctity of life, sign up at www.adflegal.org. Now that the admin is out of the way, Hadley, where have you been on media recently, and what have you been talking about?
Oh, man. This week, I think I'll get 4 hits in. I might be on Lou Dobbs' show tonight on Fox Business, which is a 7 p.m. Eastern show. Haven't gotten topics for that one yet. Might be on After the Bell tomorrow, which is a 4 p.m. Eastern show on Fox Business. Yesterday, I was on Fox Business on Cavuto Coast to Coast. We talked about Apple versus the FBI.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to talk about that. We were supposed to talk about a different topic, and then about 30 seconds before we went live, the producer came in my ear and said, "Oh, we're going to change topics and talk about something completely different." So,
well, you were you were well practiced since we talked about that on last week's Dead Reckoning Radio, right?
Yeah. I got more mean tweets from the Fox Business audience, though. The Dead Reckoning audience doesn't send me mean tweets very often, so thanks for that, guys. And then I was on CNN on Tuesday. We were talking about just Cruz campaign, firing his communications director over the Marco Rubio Bible video, and we talked a little bit about Cruz's stance on immigration, so that was fun.
Cool. Well, so you're making the rounds. Keeping busy.
Yeah, busy week.
Yeah, that is
Busy
a busy week.
Brian, what'd you do this weekend?
This last weekend?
Yeah.
Nothing unusual or, particularly special. I taught Sunday school on Sunday.
Ooh, what are you teaching about this year?
I'm doing a course on the doctrine of Christ, so we're talking about who Jesus is, and in an attempt to get to know him better. So I've just finished the week before last. I talked about the deity of Christ. Is Jesus really God? And then this past week I talked about the full humanity of Jesus. And so I did a little the old Jesus has our DNA, which people can go way back in the archives of Dead Reckoning. Our video show, DRTV, in one of our early shows, I did a thing on Jesus has our DNA. So I incorporated kind of that stuff into the Sunday school class this last Sunday. So
sweet.
I got to perform live.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Week,
we were all,
which was kind of fun. I haven't been doing much of that in recent years.
And by performing live, Brian's talking about his guitar and his singing.
Yes, exercising my musical abilities, and I haven't been doing that in recent years, but it was kind of fun. There's a really cool place down here in Billings that did an open mic, and so the last couple of weeks I went down and played a set of original stuff. It was well received. It was fun. Jay came down, which was always cool.
I heckled and drank beer.
He came and heckled
fantastic.
me, and it's always fun being on a like a legit stage. Great lighting, sound is fantastic.
I saw Art Alexakis from Everclear like a couple days before you played on that same stage.
That's so. Hey,
it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
It's a lot of fun. And Hadley, did you ever listen to Everclear? Might have been a bit.
No.
I
before
will
your
buy
time.
you a garden where your flowers will bloom.
Oh, you know what? I accidentally listened to some of their music on the radio, but I was not
Accidentally.
intentionally
They were good.
an Everclear fan.
I really liked it.
I'm
I
still
like that
dreaming
band.
of your ghost. Da-na.
Father of mine. Do you
Yeah, it
remember
was
Oh
good. It
Father
was
of
fun.
Mine?
Heard that
Yeah.
song before too. Yeah.
Well, all I did was work on my house.
Yeah, you're selling it, right?
Last week. Yeah, I'm selling it. It's going on the market on Monday, and you can tell I'm definitely like white collar, sit at a computer because my hands are so sore right now from like cleaning, packing, painting, repairing, doing all that stuff.
Harry
So
the happy homeowner.
we
thing.
are on track to getting our house on the market on Monday, so that's fun. I'm now living with my in-laws. I'm living in my in-laws' basement.
Been there, done that a couple times. Good
Yep.
luck.
I hate packing. Okay, on to the show. The crazy train political season keeps on rolling. After Tuesday's Nevada caucuses, 4 states have weighed in on the GOP presidential campaign, and Donald Trump has decisively won 3 of them. These are nerve-wracking times for people like us not supporting Trump, as the window of opportunity for stopping him gets ever narrower. Next Tuesday, 10 states will be holding their primaries in one day. That's why it's called Super Tuesday. There's your trivia, political trivia for the day. Now, you probably don't know this here, but at Dead Reckoning, we don't like spending all of our time talking about politics. Yeah, I know.
No, we don't.
Shocker. So the good thing about this primary, Brian, and I
Yes.
think you brought this up, this primary schedule, is this could all be over really soon. We won't be talking about it anymore.
It's going to be over really fast. I think everybody's saying, most of the pundits are like, March 15th is like the outside date. We're going to know what's going to happen here. So,
Yeah. So Hadley, what do you make of Trump's continued popularity? Is there something more alarming underneath culturally that might be causing this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some people want to blame Donald Trump for the divisions in the Republican Party and in our country more broadly, but I think those divisions were latent and there. And now there's, the group of people supporting Trump have a face and a name to coalesce behind with their grievances. And some of the grievances, I think, are legitimate. I would recommend an article. It was a Saturday essay in the Wall Street Journal a couple Saturdays ago by Charles Murray, who wrote Coming Apart. And his analysis is sort of socio-demographic analysis of the coming apart of America's classes, that we've never really been a society of classes, and that's to our credit. That's a good thing about America, that even wealthy people haven't really seen themselves to be different under the law, or to be entitled to more privileges than people who aren't wealthy. But now there's a stretching and a stressing of that social fabric, and that's a lot of what's behind Donald Trump. I think it's Ben Dominic wrote a long time ago that this was white identity politics at play. I think that certainly there's, that's all that Trump is identity politics. He's got a strong stance on the immigration issue, so if you feel very strongly that the number one issue facing the country is immigration and that the solution is to be as tough as possible, then that's pulling some voters Trump's direction. But the broader appeal, I think, has to do with a feeling of anger and frustration that so many promises have been broken in Washington. I, of course, find it odd that people are willing to trust someone to fulfill his promises when he has no record of doing so. But on the flip side, he doesn't have a record of breaking promises in office either. So that's a problem with Trump.
The blank slate.
Certainly, there are forces politically and culturally that were behind it and now have been brought to the forefront. I
had somebody over the weekend say, it's amazing how many of these people, or over this last week, it's amazing how many people, they're so angry at the establishment, at politics and government and the establishment, that they just want change so bad they'll bring in Donald Trump. And I'm like, that's the irony, isn't it? Because he's a big government guy. He's not a small government guy.
No way.
So it doesn't make any sense. Brian,
yeah.
what are some of your theological? Are there any theological, religious underpinnings to that might be causing some of this?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I think that all of this is Donald Trump. I think Hadley's exactly right. Donald Trump is not causing the cultural mayhem that we have right now. Donald Trump is revealing to us deeper societal problems at the core of who we are. I think that again, people there's this rage, right, and everybody's angry, and that comes from, for whether you like it or not, it comes from some kind of a sense of entitlement. It has to. I have not been treated the way I deserve to be treated by my leaders in Washington, and when you have widespread disaffection and kind of an entitlement mentality, it produces a culture that is just ripe for an authoritarian leader. We've seen this historically, that populist leaders, demagogues, step in and become sort of the canvas upon which the populace can project all of their hopes and desires. And Donald Trump is just a demagogue. It is all about winners and losers. He has no specific policy ideas to accomplish anything he says he's going to accomplish. It's simply, we're going to be winners. I'm going to win. I'm going to win so much. I'm going to win so much. You're going to be sick of winning, right? And that's the sort of thing. And it says something about a large portion of our society, and I don't think we should exaggerate this. 70% of Republican voters don't want Donald Trump. Okay, he's doing this in a divided field, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But it is still a significant portion of our society that is so disaffected, they are willing to align themselves with a man who is nothing more than a strong man, who's just going to go in and just, through, I guess, just declaring things to be, I'm just going to fix it. How are you going to do that, Mr. Trump? Well, I'm going to fix it. I fix things. That's what I do. They call me the fixing machine, right? So that's sort of his appeal, and people are taking leave of really kind of sober, rational analysis of this race. They're caught up in the fever of it. And anytime that happens in a culture, the blame is not primarily to be laid at the feet of the person who is capitalizing on the discontent. It is a deeper root cultural problem. I would also add into the mix that this is also the fruit of the American worship of celebrity, that we put our celebrities on pedestals and we worship them in many ways. And Donald Trump is a wonderfully entertaining celebrity. He's a great reality TV star for a reason, because he's entertaining. But when entertainment starts to bleed into your politics, which has been happening for a long time, you get what we're getting right now, and that is Donald Trump running away with the GOP nomination. This is crazy.
If 70% of the conservative, Republicans don't want, I guess you said conservatives,
60 to 70% anyway,
and yet he's leading the race right now. Hadley, do you think Ted Cruz's involvement and some of the other candidates are kind of muddying this up? With South Carolina's results and some of the rumblings of discontent in his campaign, you wonder why he's still in it, splitting some of this vote from Donald.
Oh, man. Ted Cruz is in second place as far as the delegate count goes, right? He won in Iowa. So I think he's got a legitimate argument for, being an alternative to Trump. And he certainly has the conservative bona fides and the conservative record. He has principles. That's something to say for candidates in this cycle.
Definitely clear, isn't it?
Right. Well, but in stark contrast to Trump, he has principles.
Right,
Whether or not you agree with his principles is another matter. But I don't think that there's a strong argument for Ted Cruz to leave the race right now. I think he's got a good argument for staying in. I think you could make arguments about some of the other candidates who have a much harder to define path to the nomination. Those
harder to define? Impossible to define?
Yeah, it takes a lot of creativity to project any kind of path to the nomination for John Kasich or for Ben Carson at this point. But my issue with Ted Cruz, or my criticism of Ted Cruz, would be that he seems to be taking a different lesson from 2008 and 2012. Republicans struggle to win the White House because presidential years are higher turnout elections, and we don't turn out as many of our folks as the left does theirs. And so he's trying to win based on this strategy of turning out the people who agree with us. And I think that that's a legitimate strategy. It's just not the one that I agree with most. My preferred strategy would be to broaden the appeal of our ideas and a candidate who represents our ideas to people who are not necessarily already in the us versus them categories.
Right.
You know, we can win us versus them. That's possible. But I would much rather, you know, have a less divided country, a more united country that says, instead of, you know, we're going to beat you down because you beat us down, and we're going to take revenge because we don't like the Obama administration, we're going to take our country back. You know, whose country is it anyway? I think we've got to put the concept of being American ahead of being Republicans or Democrats or conservatives and liberals. Maybe I sound like a squish for saying that. I believe that it's more important to have a candidate who sees the importance of attracting independent, swing, moderate, you know, soft left voters to our cause. And I think that's possible. I don't think that Ted Cruz shows any interest in doing that.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, that's really good analysis. But to piggyback on that, Hadley, I mean, the truth is, we have seen that Ted Cruz's strategy is woefully, not woefully, it's not working. Ted Cruz, his third place finish in South Carolina was really abysmal for his entire campaign strategy, which was, we are going to get all of the very conservative evangelical voters to vote for me. We're going to galvanize this slice of the electorate, and it will lead us to the nomination. The reason there's all this rumbling going on in the Cruz campaign right now, and you can see it. I mean, Red State today, Leon Wolf, major Ted Cruz booster, endorses Marco Rubio as we speak. The reason that this rumbling is going on is because Ted doesn't have enough very conservative evangelical voters to vote for him. His strategy's not working. So how long... Well, I mean, he's going to stay in, obviously, till Super Tuesday. He's going to see how it shakes out in Texas. But Hadley, surely, if he does not come out very strongly in Texas, taking the lion's share of those delegates, surely the writing is on the wall for the Cruz campaign, isn't it?
Well, we can hope so, but the writing's already on the wall, I think, for Kasich and Carson, and they're not reading it. So it's a matter of people reading the writing on the wall just as much as it is the writing being on the wall. But
God hasn't told Kasich yet to get out of the race.
This is St. Paul or St. Peter hasn't told him, but the bottom line in all of this, and this is analysis that is so obvious it may not even be worth saying, but if this were a head-to-head battle, on the Democratic side, we have Sanders versus Clinton. It's very simple, option A or option B.
Right.
The reason Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or even John Kasich or even Ben Carson are not able to pose a significant threat to Trump, and the reason that Trump had such an overwhelming victory in Nevada is because the other four candidates are splitting the votes of people who opposed Donald Trump.
Right.
He's only winning with a plurality, because he can do that because of the field that we have. And so it's not, I don't think that it's really a problem with any of the other candidates so much as it is, they are each other's problem.
Yeah.
Brian, that said, what about Marco? He went from disaster to comeback kid. What are his chances? What do you think he needs to do?
Well, Marco Rubio is trying to thread a needle so small nobody in human history has ever threaded such a needle. His window of opportunity is closing. I feel like I'm in like Star Wars or something, and I'm in an X-wing fighter, and we're heading down the trench, and like some big door is closing at the end of the trench, right? And he's punching the engines and just trying to squeak through, right? That's what's going on here. He obviously the second place finish in South Carolina was huge. I think he does get a big lift. I think he's got momentum, but he has the problem of having other people in the race. John Kasich is a major problem. Ben Carson to a little bit of a lesser extent. But the big one, of course, is Ted Cruz. I mean, Ted Cruz, these are both conservative Republican senators. In an ideal world, they're competing for the same slice of the electorate, and they are simply dividing it up right now. Certainly, I think in terms of where we are today, and these things happen and change so fast that what I'm about to say could be obsolete by tonight because there's a big debate tonight. But right now, Cruz's campaign really is sputtering, and a lot of his followers are becoming disillusioned because they don't see the math working in terms of him winning. And Rubio is on the rise. I mean, it's becoming more and more conventional wisdom as you read the punditry that Rubio really is going to be the last hope to stop Donald Trump. The question is, how does he do that? Well, I think a couple of things need to happen. I think next Tuesday, Marco has to win 1 or 2 states. I mean, he's got to win some states and some delegates. That could happen in Minnesota, could happen in Tennessee. Marco needs to either have a surprise victory in Texas, which isn't going to happen, or take a lot of the delegates in Texas, which is more possible, or he needs Ted Cruz to do very poorly in Texas and would have to get out immediately after Super Tuesday. If all of that were to happen and the stars aligned, then it's possible he can win Michigan on March 8th and then going into March 15th, the Florida primary. Winning the Florida primary is a winner-take-all, 99 delegates, gets Marco right back into the saddle, neck and neck with Trump. If all of that were to happen, he could thread this needle, but it is not a terribly likely thing.
Brian, about the same time that people were talking about the fiasco with Ted Cruz's campaign manager, I saw at least 2 articles about the need for Rubio and Cruz to combine their tickets.
Yes, a
and
unity
basically
ticket.
team up. Hadley, do you think that's even possible, or are egos in the way, or what's the reality of that happening?
Well, it's funny because I have many friends who say Cruz or Rubio. You know, they're happy with either one of those guys because they want an alternative to Trump, and they like that both Cruz and Rubio are truly conservatives. You know, and so I think among the supporters of those two camps, there's a lot of people in the center of the Venn diagram. You know, but when it comes to the actual campaigns themselves, not only do I think there's been a lot of ugliness and bad blood that might make it impossible for them to join forces at this point, but there's also, it's a difference in strategy. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the Ted Cruz strategy is us versus them so long as we get more people to the polls. And the Rubio strategy is let's increase who us is. Yeah, I know that's poor grammar, but that's a summation of their, what I see as their different strategies. And so if we want to combine those two strategies by saying, hey, at the same time as we want to increase, you know, conservative turnout, we want to increase who identifies as conservative, I think ultimately that's a winning strategy. But I don't know if, you know, during primary season, if those two strategies are compatible, because they have a lot to do with how they dictate, you know, what the tone of your campaign is, how you project what your stance on the issues are. So, you know, I don't see any hope for a so-called Cuban ticket.
You don't see a unity ticket coming. But no, I mean that's really good analysis. That is a problem, is the tone of the campaign. But at the same time, on a unity ticket, whoever's at the top of that ticket will be dictating the strategy and will be dictating. Yeah, that's the problem though.
They're not going to. They can't agree who's going to be at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, that's true.
Not just the
but
campaigns,
if I were a
but I mean,
betting man,
supporters themselves. You know, I said there's a lot in the center of the Venn diagram, but there are people on either side of the Venn diagram too. There are some people who say, "I support Cruz. I would never support Rubio," because those people typically say, "Well, he's a squish on immigration." They say "gang of 8," and that's end of conversation for them. You know, and then on the other hand, you've got people who support Rubio who say, "I'm so turned off by Ted Cruz that I could never support him."
Don't you think those people? I just think that when the question's put to them. If it were a Rubio Cruz unity ticket and it was that versus Donald Trump, I don't see those hardcore Cruz supporters going and voting for Donald Trump. I don't see that at all. I think that they would fall in line. The question about who's on top of that ticket. Yeah. The question about who's on top of that ticket? Well, I think the conventional wisdom now among pundits looking at the delegate math and who has the path would say Rubio's got to be the top of the ticket. He's the one who still has the fighting chance at winning the nomination, whereas Ted right now is a little bit down and out in terms of the primary process. So
Can I also just say that vice president is, I believe, one of the weakest roles in the government, and it's just not a position that really matters.
So let me float another scenario by you, because I actually was thinking that myself. I am not sure that Ted Cruz wants to be vice president of the United States.
He would rather be a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. What about the deal that either Attorney General, Supreme Court justice? I almost think that he would take the Attorney General job, because I actually don't know that Ted's got the temperament to go through the rest of his life in the relative isolation of being a Supreme Court justice. He really does love being in the ring.
The limelight.
Right? I don't want to put it personally, like I don't want to call him an attention seeker, a diva or an attention seeker, although many could interpret him that way. But I do think he likes being in the mix and in the process, in the political process. And I actually don't think he wants a Supreme Court job. I think that takes him away from it for the rest of his life. No more running, no more campaigns, no more cameras, no more. And I don't know that he wants that job. But Attorney General puts him in a really good position to run for more offices in the future. It's a pretty good stepping stone.
Yeah.
I could see something like that happening.
I think right now the job he wants is president. So that's the problem.
Yeah, but if he does poorly on Tuesday, he's going to find out the hard way that he's not going to be president.
I just can't get over the fact that these guys would risk running the entire conservative movement / Republican Party into the ground. Just
well,
from
it's
ego.
They
just want something.
The only
even
people
though
you
it's,
can
not
say
really
that
there.
about, but the only people you can say that about right now are John Kasich and Ben Carson. I mean, as Hadley said, Ted,
and Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump. Well, but he's not. I was talking about Republicans.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, Ted Cruz has a very legitimate reason to be in this race, as does Marco Rubio. Let's not blame them for the situation we're in, okay? Donald Trump is to blame for the situation we're in. He is fomenting the kind of chaos that we're seeing right now. They're trying as best they can to respond and react. The problem is that the time in which we can respond and react is rapidly shrinking. That door is closing. I mean, I almost feel, Jay, you and I were talking about this earlier. This is 10 seconds left in the football game. You're down by 6. You're on your own 1 yard line.
It's 4th and long.
And the only thing that is going to bail us out of this is to drop it back and throw a bomb. And I believe that bomb is. I do believe that bomb is a unity ticket between Rubio and Cruz, or some sort of a deal that gets Cruz to back out of the race, in which most of his supporters will go to Marco. I think that's the bomb. I think that's the Hail Mary.
Maybe they'll drop that bomb during the debate tonight.
Oh,
wouldn't that be
wild?
Epic?
It'd be so epic.
We're not debating. We're actually
It's
combining.
not
Like,
gonna
that's the
happen.
announcement. Oh man,
That would
that'd be
not happen.
gnarly.
I'm not that hopeful that that's going to happen. But I will say, I think that pollsters need to ask this question more often, because I think this is the question that really matters. And the latest poll that I've seen on this question is interesting. So Public Policy Polling, which is a Democratic left-leaning polling organization, asked Republican voters if the race were just among Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz. Marco Rubio actually gets 34% of the votes. Trump gets 33%, which I realize is within the margin of error.
Right.
And Ted Cruz would get 25%. So that could be enough. A three-way race could be enough for Rubio, at least in terms of, popular vote, to have more support than Donald Trump. What's really interesting to me about that is if you just ask Republican women, then they pick Rubio 39% compared to 28% and 23% for Cruz. And I'm not trying to say that women's votes are more important than men's. That's certainly not the case. But you look at the past couple general elections, and why is President Obama in the White House?
Women.
It's because Republicans can't get enough female votes. And I'm not saying they have to get as many or more than Democrats. They just have to get enough so that they don't have such a huge gender gap. And when you poll Trump and Cruz in the general election, they have gender gaps with women.
I can't imagine a woman
spell defeat, especially against Sanders, which is shocking to me. But there's a lot of young women who are supporting Sanders.
Right.
There's more enthusiasm in the Sanders camp than the Hillary camp. But I would be curious to see if it truly were a three-way race. Who would win that race?
I think Rubio would have a shot if it was a true three-way race. Apparently, John Kasich is going nowhere. This guy is running a vanity campaign. He wants to be somebody's VP pick, and he wants to be a big kingmaker. He's going to try to. He's playing the role of spoiler. He's going to spoil this for everybody else.
He's like the guy that's like, well, if I can't win, nobody's going to win.
It is sort of that. I mean, it has that feel to it. And if he really believes that if he holds out till Ohio and wins Ohio, somehow he's back in the game to win the nomination, I think that's crazy. He has no infrastructure in so many important states. So I don't know why he's not getting out. But that's why I say, Hadley, I think the Hail Mary may be in the cards at this point because Kasich is making that necessary.
Yeah, that's up to people a lot more powerful than me. But one concern I have is that even if Republicans get it together and nominate a conservative, I'm really not convinced that Trump doesn't launch his own presidential race.
That's a really good point. Does Trump go third party? I say no, and here's why.
He's got a TV show to make out of all the
Donald Trump knows that running a third party campaign is a 100% certain loser. And Donald Trump does not want to end this remarkable presidential ambitious campaign he's run. He does not want to end as a loser. I don't think he runs third party. He knows he'll be a loser. Much better to just simply lose out on the nomination. Hey, ran the best campaign I could, and then go back to your reality
blame
TV
everybody
show.
else.
Yeah, blame everybody else. But I don't see him wanting to enter a race he knows he'll lose. That's why I don't see him going third party. What do you think, Hadley?
I do not like making any kind of conjecture about what Donald Trump will or won't do.
Well,
he has defied all conventional wisdom.
Yeah,
he's defied every pundit's imagination about what normally happens.
He's erratic. He's erratic as anything we have ever seen. Although I will say there are certain fundamentals. He's not defied all the fundamentals. In the last debate before South Carolina, he went all 9/11 truther about how George Bush is responsible for the two towers collapsing and how he lied about weapons of mass destruction. He just went total Occupy Wall Street, right? I mean,
Yep.
It was incredible. He did lose. Between that event and the South Carolina voting, he dropped 8 points from his polling. There are fundamentals at work. The man does not walk on water. And
he bounced back pretty quick in Nevada, though.
Yeah, but as somebody put it, keep in mind, Nevada is Donald Trump in state form. Okay, it's not
It's
surprising.
Las Vegas.
It's Las Vegas, right?
Given how the caucus actually rolled out, I wonder how much of that is actually true, with ballots laying around on the floor and drifting around the street.
It was pretty crazy. By the way, I'm in favor of getting rid of caucuses altogether. It's time.
When is
for
the Montana
primaries.
contest? When do you guys have a
It's
chance?
late.
It's late, and we
June maybe.
Well, we're three
You don't
delegates,
matter.
2 delegates,
Three delegates.
three
I think it's
delegates,
3 delegates.
and we're trying to write in Marco Rubio right now.
We're trying to get him on the ballot.
Right.
Not dead
I
reckoning.
gotta go
but
March 1st. I gotta go caucus here in Colorado.
You're awesome.
What's really amazing about this whole race is that for the first time probably in American history, Montana's delegates might actually mean something.
Hey, speaking of delegates, Hadley, you had mentioned a comment that you were actually thinking about maybe trying to be a delegate for Colorado.
Yeah.
Question,
so
though. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I've never lived in a caucus state before, and so this is all very new to me, but if that's an opportunity ahead of me, it's something I'm willing to do.
That said, how does this work? Because if the candidates come in and all the delegates are for one candidate, but you personally don't like that candidate, how does that work? Do you have to vote?
Well,
if Trump wins, do you have to I'm a Trump?
So I think that it works differently in every state. I mean, states have the state Republican Party and the state Democratic Party have the authority to decide what their delegates are required to do or not required to do.
Bound, or unbound?
Right. And so in Colorado, from what I understand, I go to my local caucus. I meet with my neighborhood Republicans. If they say, yeah, Hadley, we want you to be a delegate, then I go to my county assembly, and then I go to my state assembly. And between being chosen as a delegate and going to those assemblies, I am free to make up my mind whom to support.
Interesting.
So when they come in,
the reason I'm free, I think the reasoning behind making delegates free to change their minds is, between the March 1st caucus in my neighborhood and the March 19th county assembly and the April 9th state assembly in Colorado, my preferred candidate could drop out of the race.
Right.
And so it's important for me, let's say I support Ben Carson, whom, by the way, for our listeners, I think Ben Carson is just a wonderful man.
Everybody thinks Ben Carson is a wonderful man.
Yeah. And, I think highly of John Kasich for other reasons as well. But they should drop out. So now that I've said my piece about that, let's say I support Ben Carson. Then between March 1st and March 19th, he does the right thing and he drops out. Then I have to make up my mind, who am I going to support? Whom am I going to support going forward?
Right.
Some states, I believe, bind their delegates to
whoever wins,
one candidate or the other.
Okay, so then Colorado delegates really don't matter a whole lot. So then you kind of have to run your own little election to get,
I don't understand how that works.
Don't you
with
think people
unbound
would vote for me, though, in my neighborhood? Don't you think my neighbors would?
Yes,
I think you're going to be a
Select me as a
delegate. I think you're going to be a
No.
delegate.
In fact, if
I don't
in
know.
my
I just
opinion
moved
now,
here, guys.
Doesn't matter.
There's people
I'm
who are
not-
like
You're gonna go
probably
in there and
power
you're
brokers.
gonna go in there and they're gonna go, oh, you're that lady on
As a-
Fox
as a dead
Business all
reckoning-
the time.
as a dead reckoning person, I'm not endorsing anybody. But I'm probably if Rubio's on the ticket, I'm going to go Rubio. But if he's not, I'm gonna write in Hadley.
There you go, Hadley Manning. Yeah.
Okay, guys,
young,
we spent
too
like almost 40 minutes on that topic. So moving
move
on. Right, not the Onion News. This is the segment of our show where Brian and Hadley pit wits, and either A, I don't choose these topics for if you're going to get them right or wrong. I choose them because they're funny. So how this game works is we pick a real headline that is in the news. It is not an Onion article. It is a real article, and it is absurd. And we make up another absurd headline, and you guys guess which one is true. And
I
which
won
one
last
is
time.
fake.
I
This
won the
one-
Scottish one. Remember the Scottish guys, the bagpipers, and they went into the McDonald's and they were blowing their bagpipes at 4:00 in the morning.
Yep,
You remember that?
and we are gonna stick with the fast food theme.
Okay.
We're gonna stick with the fast food theme. In fact, it's like McDonald's versus Burger King. It's great, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. Headline number 1. In fact, this one makes me kind of hungry. Headline number 1: Man legally changes his name to Bacon Double Cheeseburger.
Just has to be true. It has to be true, doesn't it?
Well, headline number 2: Man leaves job at Burger King, takes all Whopper buns with him.
Oh man.
And now I'm hungry. Kind of want a Burger King bacon
So
double
guy
cheeseburger.
leaves his job and steals all of the buns.
All of the Whopper buns, yeah. Not just any buns, the
Whopper buns. They are good.
I'm gonna say that one's real. People do stuff like that all the time.
But
They
then
do.
why would it be a
Steal.
news story? Right? They do it all the time.
Because last time I went with the whole reverse psychology thing, this sounds too wild, so
You're just going with your
this
gut
time I'm
this
just
week.
He must
going
not have
with
a
what makes sense.
he must not have a gluten intolerance. Maybe he felt compelled to practice some SJW action on, processed foods or something.
On the evil,
On the gluten, on the evil
corporations.
corporation gluten thing.
Maybe he felt all along that he had been underpaid, and he was like, "This is my payment.
That's true.
This is my bonus."
So
Bun
Brian,
bonus.
man leaves job at Burger King, takes all Whopper buns with him, or man legally changes his name to Bacon Double Cheeseburger.
Okay, let's just make this fun. I think a guy changed his name to Bacon Double Cheeseburger.
Why in the world?
I think
would-
Brian's gonna win just because he's been
I'm
on
just
he's been on
going
a
with
streak
it.
lately.
I'm rolling with it. It just sounds so absurd it has to be true.
That's funny. There's a discussion right now on our live stream on is there a difference between Whopper buns and regular buns?
Yes, the Whopper ones are what do they call those? They have the little swirl on them. They're
Like a Kaiser roll?
Yeah, it's like a Kaiser roll, I think.
Really?
I thought a Whopper bun was
No,
like
I thought
a Kaiser
Whopper just
roll.
had sesame seeds.
That's a Big Mac, I think.
I don't know, but I like the
Maybe you're
specificity
right.
in this news title because it makes me think maybe it's more real. But I'm not sure if Jay is like trying to trick us on these.
No,
That's my whole
I
thing
take
with
the
this.
real one. I take the real one I think is the funniest.
Megan is also going with bacon double cheeseburger. So
Okay.
Megan, you and me.
Yeah, okay, so 33-year-old Sam Smith had the following to say. It was a culmination of probably too many drinks in the pub where there was a conversation about names. And
Brian wins.
And my fiance is fairly reluctant about marrying a cheeseburger. That's something we're discussing.
Congratulations, Brian.
That's
Thanks,
something we're
Hadley.
discussing a lot. No girl ever dreams of spending her big day marrying a man called Bacon.
Love it.
I
Megan.
now present to you Mr. and Mrs. Bacon Double Cheeseburger.
That's awesome.
Bacon double double.
It's like,
Okay, can I point out something though? On our last show, I was right about 1, 2, 3, and 4 in South Carolina. So,
You
You were.
were
Absolutely.
right.
Nailed that.
You're right. You're right.
but I
I
can't
went-
win. Not the Onion News.
Yeah, I did go out on a limb in South Carolina. I was actually not that disappointed with the results, though. I thought that the second place showing by Marco was really strong. after the New Hampshire debacle, and so I was pretty pleased with it. I obviously wasn't pleased that Donald Trump got 34% of the vote or
Well,
something like that. But
Joshua also on the live stream said he's changing his vote and going with Hadley, so he's with me.
Hadley, do you want to start a party and we
And-
can run a third party campaign? You can run for president.
That'd be sweet.
Guys,
and not
no
something
one has
dumb
mentioned
like
this yet.
an elephant. Like, why in
Well,
the world
no
is an
one-
elephant the GOP?
So, you have to be 35 to run for president, and today
Oh, man.
I am 28. So I'm
So let's
still
start
too young.
2024. 2024. Hadley.
I can tell you what, I'll run for president, and you guys can be both my script writers and my policy advisors.
Guys, I'm mining so hard for a happy birthday, and you're not throwing it my way. So thanks.
Oh, we're so lame. We're so lame.
Today, I'm
birthday.
28.
Happy birthday,
No, I thought
Hadley.
you meant
This is awesome.
I didn't realize. No, listen, because the grammar of that could easily be interpreted as I interpreted it. That today I'm 28. Like I could
yesterday
say.
I was 27.
Yeah, no,
so
you didn't say
put it
that
together.
though. You didn't say that though. You didn't say that. So in my defense, I just interpreted it as you're 28. So happy birthday, Hadley.
Happy
shall we?
birthday, Hadley.
Thank
You don't
you.
look a day over 18.
Thanks.
Oh no, come on.
You look 45.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hadley. Happy birthday to you. Jay lost the
What were we
melody
doing?
there.
Oh, I was following you. I wasn't leading.
You were supposed to stay on the
sorry, I
melody. I
should've
was going to the
followed.
harmony note.
I
The
should've followed.
The
I'm
third
sorry.
above.
Guys,
I'm
it
sorry.
was from the heart, and
It was
great.
from the
Thank
heart.
you.
Happy birthday, Hadley.
I
Thank
gotta.
you, guys.
I'm not naturally talented like you. I've got to practice things.
Hadley, big birthday plans? You guys going out for dinner or something? Or
Yeah, I'm going out with a couple of my girlfriends tonight. Aaron's on a 30-hour shift at the hospital, so he can't join us. But I do have a couple friends. We're going to a restaurant I've never been to in Denver. It's called 1515. I'll let you know how it is.
sounds swanky. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, back to. Oh, Montana primaries are June
June 7th, I believe.
7th. Yeah, Aaron pointed that out on the live stream too. In South America, there has been an outbreak of a new virus called Zika. For the most part, it is fairly harmless. It's given to you by mosquitoes. But it increases the chance of microcephaly in babies. The Mayo Clinic describes microcephaly as a rare neurological condition in which an infant's head is significantly smaller than the heads of other children of the same age and sex. Sometimes detected at birth, microcephaly usually is the result of the brain developing abnormally in the womb or not growing as it should after birth. The outbreak has particularly hit Brazil, a country with low use of contraception and very strict laws against abortion. Many are now urging that Brazil increase the use of birth control, including some comments by the Pope. And others are taking the opportunity to suggest that Brazil relax their abortion laws to deal with this epidemic. Brian, a recent article in New York Magazine seemed like it was blaming strict abortion laws for the outbreak. Is that a proper way to calculate the causation here?
No.
The leading question.
Yeah, I read the New York Magazine article. I was actually kind of appalled by it. It was suggesting that somehow having strict abortion laws is somehow hindering the solving of the epidemic of the Zika virus. I just want a little problem with that reasoning is who does the Zika virus attack? Anybody? Who does the Zika virus affect?
Everyone.
No, who does it affect? The virus is attacking somebody. Who
Oh, the
is
virus,
it
not the
attacking?
mosquito.
Who is the virus attacking? Anybody? The baby.
The babies.
Right? So, in the reasoning of New York Magazine, in order to stop the virus, we must kill its victims. Killing the victims of the virus does not solve the problem of the virus. Not only that, it's rather morally obtuse. I believe that the proper idea here is that we try to stop the virus from attacking its victims rather than dispatching its victims for it. So I am not persuaded by that reasoning at all. That's trying to deal with the epidemic by attacking it at its fruits rather than at its roots. And, not that anybody really understands the origins of this virus, but we do know that it is transmitted by mosquitoes, and mosquito-borne illnesses are nothing new. We have dealt with epidemics like this for decades and decades. Malaria, for example, in Africa is mosquito-borne. And the effective way of fighting this sort of virus is to keep the mosquito population down. But the environmentalists won't let us do that.
Hadley, there's obviously some public policy stuff at play, even for, I guess, international foreign policy. And it also appears that the virus is sexually transmitted. What are your thoughts on those two circumstances, and is there some overlap?
Well, certainly as a Christian, I think it's a wonderful, God-pleasing thing for a man and his wife to have a sexual union. So I don't think that saying, everyone should stop having sex is a good answer either. I think
and
people
sort of
should not be.
impractical.
It is impractical, and so recommending that people avoid sexual activity if it's outside of marriage or if it's has to do with promiscuity, then I think that's a good recommendation. And I think during Carnival, which is Brazil's celebration of Fat Tuesday, the government was actually recommending, hey, be careful who you kiss, be careful who you have sexual relations with, because this is another way that Zika is being transmitted. So I applaud any public health efforts to recommend that outside of the places where it's appropriate, people abstain from sexual activity. But of course, within a marriage, that's an important part of a marriage, So the whole Zika thing. And I got to say, it's been very personally hard for me to hear about all the cases of microcephaly as an expectant woman, as an expectant mother. I even have told some of my friends that I'm pregnant, and their response is, "Oh my gosh, have you heard about this Zika virus?" And I'm like,
"Wow, that's really
have
tactful.
I heard about it?"
Very tactful.
Yeah, only every day on the news have I heard about it. While I've been pregnant, the first cases have spread outside of Brazil. The World Health Organization has deemed this an international health crisis.
Yeah.
Every day there's a new news story about it, and so it's really unavoidable. As especially as someone who watches the news pretty frequently. and as a pregnant person, that I wouldn't have heard about this. The CDC is targeting their, warnings about this to people like me. So yes, thank you, friends. I have heard about the Zika virus. It's not something that I really want to dwell on a lot, but it has been a challenge for me as a Christian. How do I conceptualize the idea that some people are born with severe abnormalities, and what does the Bible tell us about this? And I have to tell you, during this time, and I hope this will be encouraging to some people who are trying to process all of this, God has really comforted me with the story of the blind man in the Bible, when the disciples say, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus said, neither. And so, right there in that word, there's a lot of comfort that God doesn't give us babies who are born with disabilities to punish us.
Right.
He's not doing this as a punishment to those mothers or to their babies or to their governments who have disallowed abortion. But Jesus says the man was born blind so that the works of God could be revealed in him. And so that's another comforting lesson, I believe, that we can know that God says every person, even and maybe especially if they're born with a disability, is born so that the works and the glory of God can be revealed in that person. And so for me, that's been
That's
a Bible
really
story
good.
that's been a source of great comfort to me. And I feel like it's really a gift from the Holy Spirit to draw my mind to that passage and to give me that comfort, because it's horrifying to think that your child could be born with a problem like this.
Yeah.
And so I know that's not really the public policy related answer maybe you wanted from me, Jay, but I just wanted to share my heart on this because it's been so hard. Just imagining holding my firstborn child and to know that some mothers, many mothers in parts of the world that are suffering from increased levels of microcephaly are holding a baby that's going to be severely mentally retarded and may not have the life that their mothers dreamed for them.
Yeah, that's really a good word, and I'm glad that you opened up to share us your heart, Hadley. Sometimes the public policy is secondary to.
Oh, I thought it blended.
It
blended beautifully between, there's always a personal implication and a personal effect of public policy in general.
Yeah.
Is that these are real people you're dealing with. They're not just
statistics.
They're not just statistics and these outside problems. I mean, there's real people involved in this.
I'm really glad you brought up the man born blind too. I'm reminded of one of my favorite stories in the Old Testament in Chronicles. Israel's first king was Saul. And Saul had a son by the name of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth was a cripple. Couldn't walk from birth, Mephibosheth. And there's this really beautiful scene where after David becomes king and finally moves into Jerusalem, he's the king. The expectation in the ancient Near East was that when you become king, you kill off all potential claimants to the throne. And Mephibosheth was obviously a claimant to the throne, given his lineage, and he was a cripple. And there's this beautiful story where David takes Mephibosheth into his home and gives him a place of honor at the table, rather than doing the expected, which was to kill the cripple. He invites the cripple to dine with him at his table and be a member of his family. Deep spiritual lessons there. We are all Mephibosheth. We are all cripples. Jesus, the greater Son of David, invites us to dine and eat with him, even though while we were his enemies, he gave his life for us, right? We're Mephibosheth. But so there's the deep spiritual level, but even on the physical level, the compassion that God shows for those who have disabilities or abnormalities is great and profound. And I sometimes think that God gives us these people as sort of a mirror to show we are all disfigured. We are all abnormal. We are all wretched sinners who are in need of the pure, unmerited grace of God. And so that's why I react so viscerally to New York Magazine trying to tell me that, oh, we have an epidemic. Gee, the solution is we've got to get rid of all of these babies who are abnormal. I think that is wholeheartedly opposed to God's attitude toward people who are unfortunately disabled, and the value of human life is profound. And so when it comes to public policy, when it comes to thinking through these things, protecting human life needs to be priority number one. Don't kill the babies, kill the mosquitoes.
Here's another question that we really haven't gotten to. I think Jay brought this up, but it has to do with contraception. Because Brazil
Right.
is, like the rest of South America, a pretty Catholic-heavy country. And so when the Pope mentions that even some forms of contraception might be acceptable in this case, I'm curious what you guys think about, because I understand, yes, the best possible solution would be that our healthcare professionals find some kind of cure, treatment, vaccine, and we can, maybe work against the spread of the disease by killing more mosquitoes. I agree. That's obviously the best outcome, that we contain the virus and that we inoculate the human race against it. That would be wonderful. But until that time, as families, how can potential parents think about this? Because I'm thinking, like, if I were a Brazilian young woman and I'd gotten to the point in my life with my husband that we wanted to have children, but also knowing the risk associated with bearing a child in Brazil, where the occurrence of this virus and the associated microcephaly is so strong, it would be harder for me to make the decision, let me have a baby right now, because
Right.
I'd be concerned that it may not be the best time. But I have that flexibility because I've used contraception and I don't have a moral objection to contraception. But I guess some people do. And so
Right.
what do you think about all that? That seems complicated to me.
Yeah, well, it is complicated, and it's a matter of some controversy, even in Christian traditions. Obviously, Roman Catholicism rejects contraception pretty much en masse, which is why it raised a lot of eyebrows that the Pope was saying, given this circumstance, maybe these rules can be relaxed a little bit, which caught a lot of people by surprise. I mean, Rome doesn't believe in contraception at all. I think Rome goes far beyond any real justification or ground or warrant to condemn all contraception. I'm a Protestant. I don't think the Bible teaches that. I do not believe that it is inherently immoral for people to plan their childbearing. In many ways, I think that's a great gift of modern medicine. And I'm not necessarily talking here about abortifacient forms of contraception.
But do you think that the Zika virus is a good reason to change your family planning?
I don't know there's any one answer to that. I think that each person has to decide for themselves. And I my counsel would be, fear not. Fear not. Yeah. Do not be afraid. That is the number one. That's the number one most recurring command in the Bible. Do not be afraid. And I don't think we should be overcome by fear. The truth is, we don't really know the percentages of children who develop microcephaly because of the Zika virus. This is all fairly new, and I think that I would counsel people not to be overcome by fear. If you're in a committed marital relationship, then it is very unlikely that one of you has contracted the Zika virus via sexually transmitted disease. You're probably pretty safe of having children in the context of your marriage, unless obviously you contract it via mosquito. But I would counsel people not to be fearful and make their decisions purely based on fear.
I think I'd want to take a 9-month trip somewhere, pregnancy tourism or something.
There you go.
While I'm bearing my baby, but I know not a lot of people have the resources to do something like that, especially in a country like Brazil.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of considerations when having kids. I mean, every kid we have, you wonder, You just wonder. I mean, without the Zika
course.
virus, you just wonder.
Of course. Yeah.
And
there's always an element of the unknown and fear when you're having children.
Yeah.
And we've just been very blessed to have 3 of them that are happy and healthy.
I'm a very providential guy, and when God says, I have plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to bring you a future and a hope. And I believe that he's got our good out. He's going to do everything for our good and his glory. So if he does, for some reason, give us a child with disabilities, we're supposed to have that child.
Absolutely. God has great purposes in it.
We will be equipped. We will know what to do. And
it's very important. And it's very important for people to remember when you're facing this sort of a thing. When you say, "Oh, I can't handle that." Are you kidding? I just don't have.
Yeah.
No, that's not the point. The point is, you will be able to handle that. God will provide the resources that you need when you need them. Of course, you don't have the resources right now. All right. So that's what faith. That's what walking by faith and not by sight means. You look around and you say, I can't handle this, Lord. Well, of course you can. That's your sight talking.
Sometimes we should just go back and read, Hebrews 11 all the time, just constant.
By faith.
By faith.
And by the way, you are united to the pioneer and perfecter of faith, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Beautiful.
All right. When we come back after this next little game of wit and whimsy, well, more death. All right, guys.
What in the world was that?
Fill in the blank. Oscars edition. The Oscars edition of Fill in the Blank.
Okay.
Since none of us have watched really anything that's on the Oscars nominated list this year, we're just going to play a game about it. So here's how it works. I am going to go back and forth. There are not necessarily any winners or any losers, but you will actually probably show the world who's more culturally hip about movies than the other person. And I'm going to read the title of a movie and leave out one word in the title.
Oh, man.
And we have to do what? And we have to just find out what the word is?
You have to figure out what the word is. You've got to fill in the blank of the movie title. Okay?
Oh, man.
It's very easy. Who wants to start? Should we flip a coin?
Yeah, let's flip a coin. Do you have a coin? We can
no.
rock, paper, scissors it. Ready, Hadley?
Hadley, rock, paper, scissors. Go.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Try that again. That was terrible.
Not very good.
That was terrible.
Okay,
and there's like no
Are
delay
we doing
here
it on
either.
3 or 1, 2, 3, go?
1, 2, 3, go.
Okay.
Okay, ready? One, 2, 3. Come on.
Go.
No. Why did you stop?
Because I was waiting for you to catch up.
Oh, there's no delay here. Okay, so we're just going to go.
Okay.
And I think we need to close our eyes, all right? So that
Okay,
if there
okay.
is a little delay, then
Okay.
neither of us will see the other, okay? Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3.
Wait, hold up. All right.
What do we got?
Hadley wins.
Hadley wins, okay.
So Hadley, do you
Also,
want?
you didn't do it like I thought you were going to do 1, 2, 3, go. You did it on 3, but
So
since
do
I
you
had my
wanna
eyes
have
closed.
this-
Listen, I am not practiced at rock, paper, scissors,
Would
okay?
you guys shut up? Hadley's going first. Okay, let's get to the game already. It happened one 1934 winner. It happened one blank.
Night.
Ding, 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 ding. Brian, a blank mind from 2001.
A beautiful mind.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, 1962, blank of Arabia.
Is it her turn?
Lawrence.
Lawrence of Arabia,
Was that-
correct.
that was
her
her turn,
turn.
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Brian, the 1861, the 1981 winner, blank of fire.
Chariots of Fire.
Very good. Hadley, 1949, all the blank men.
Kings.
Beautiful.
No,
so far.
that's not right. Isn't
Yep,
it all the
King's-
President's Men?
All the King's Men, 1949.
Wow.
1965, the what of music?
The Sound of Music.
Brilliant. Hadley, 1935, blank.
Why do I keep getting these like exceptionally old movies?
Because you're 28.
Blank
Yep.
of the blank on the bounty.
I don't know. I'll say I don't know. I give up.
Brian?
The Mutiny on the Bounty.
Mutiny on the Bounty. Very good. Okay, Brian.
Oh.
The Return of the What from 2003.
King.
Very good. Hadley. Should get this one. 2009. The Hurt.
Locker.
Very good. Brian, 1964. My Fair
Lady.
Hadley. 1957. The What on the River Kwai.
I don't know.
Bridge.
Bridge on the River Kwai. Brian, 1994. Forrest.
Gump.
Hadley.
Yes.
1929. All sorry, it's just the way it's working out.
Okay. Also, I want to point out that Brian has had The Sound of Music and My Fair Lady and Forrest Gump.
Okay, right.
True.
Which have to be the three easiest.
1929.
You're a sore loser.
1929. All Quiet on the What Front?
Western.
Very good. Brian, 1971. This was one of my favorites. The French
Connection.
Hadley, 1939. With the Wind. With the Wind. Blank with the Wind.
Oh, Gone
39.
with the Wind.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
Am I from the South or am I from the South?
From the
You're talking
South.
about your moving hands, and I was thinking about when Scarlett O'Hara's hands were all dirty
Three
from
more.
working Tara.
Three more. And so far, except for that one,
No, I think I'm 2 up on her.
Yeah, I've missed at least 2.
Brian, 2008. Another one of my favorites. What Millionaire?
Slumdog.
Nice. Hadley, 1951. An American in...
Paris?
Very good. And finally, another winning movie. The What Speech from 2010.
Oh.
The King's Speech.
Nice.
Beautiful movie. I love that movie.
I love that movie. So there's a few winners from the last generation of...
And Brian wins again. It's like the Brian sweepstakes this week.
I am the Donald Trump of Dead Reckoning radio
For
shows
the record,
today.
For the record, the comments we get are on Dead Reckoning. The comments we get are, we love Dead Reckoning. I just love everything Hadley has to say.
It is true.
Hadley's the only reason. You're the only reason we're like
Anybody
remotely popular.
watches. Yeah.
I'll be there. All right, guys. Segment 3.
Oh, no,
so far.
that's not very nice, Megan. In Hadley's defense, Brian is much older.
Much older.
I don't look it though. I don't look it.
Interpret that how you will. It's just a fact.
It is true.
It is fact. She's going to outlive you likely too.
Yeah,
because-
no question about that.
Well, guys, so far the show seems to be about death,
And more death.
Death. So let's see. the Zika virus, and now the death penalty.
Okay, cool, fun.
The Pope, he's turning up a lot in our show.
He
for
is,
being
isn't
a
he?
bunch of Protestants.
Yeah.
Whatever.
None of us are Catholic, but we talk about the Pope.
No, he provides good fodder for conversation.
He does.
Anyway, he made news again by condemning capital punishment and calling for a worldwide 1-year moratorium on it. Hadley.
I just think that's funny. Like, let's take a 1-year moratorium from something that I've just condemned.
I know,
It's like
it's
when
hilarious.
people say they want to fast during Lent
Yeah.
from something that is already sinful. I'm like, why are you gonna cut it out for just 40 days? Like,
I know.
For Lent, I'm going to give up sex, sleeping around with
Yeah.
the people I meet at the bar.
It struck me the same way, Hadley.
sorry, I just thought that was funny.
I was like, why 1 year? What?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
believe in it at all.
Maybe he's just, trying to bargain, trying to get a compromise or something.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
funny.
Yeah.
So that's funny. So Hadley, do you agree with the Pope? I mean, obviously not on the 1-year thing, but do you agree with the fact
On
that
capital
it's-
punishment?
Yeah, it's condemnable.
Well, everything's condemnable depending on who's doing the condemning, but I guess,
Well, you're doing the
I'm
condemning
gonna-
on this topic.
yeah, right. So you're asking my opinion. And I'm going to shock everyone by revealing that sometimes talking heads on TV, if you ask them how they feel about something, that the real answer is, I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm going to tell you that capital punishment is an issue where I feel very torn. And I do not have a solid position on the death penalty. And I just want people to take a moment of silence and recognize the humanity of people in my profession, because I don't think that people give us enough credit for the fact that we're every day, we're asked to take hard line positions on everything and defend
Right.
point of view. And like occasionally I just want to be able to say, you know what? I
don't know.
I don't have an opinion. And so I know that's probably disappointing to you guys because you want to me to have an opinion.
It's
but
not disappointing at all.
I
think Brian's going to end up bringing a little bit of theological stuff to it. But Hadley,
maybe he can sway me.
Well, I know. Okay, dive in first before Brian does that. Dive in a little bit to some of your thoughts behind kind of both sides.
Yeah, I mean,
because I think you represent most of the. I think for a large part, she represents a lot of us that we're not.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything disappointing in what you just said. In fact, that's fantastic that you say that you don't know. So I think it's kind of fruitful for you to tell us what is it about
what are my thoughts
that has you torn, right?
Right. So probably when I was younger, I would have said, yes, I believe in capital punishment 100%. And over the years, I've been exposed to a lot of libertarian thinking on a lot of issues. And so part of my hang up is, although there are some crimes for which I believe, I would say, in my judgment, that this person deserves to die, their guilt condemns them to a death punishment. I guess I also believe in limited government, and it's hard to say that this does not look like a limited government when a government has the power to take the life of someone. And so that's sort of where I feel the division. I feel like I'm someone who believes in harsh punishments for serious crimes, but I'm also someone who believes in limited government. And part of my trouble is that I don't believe that there's any government on this earth that is perfect. And I want perfect justice. I want God's perfect justice, but I don't know that I always trust our earthly governments to be perfect in their in their delivering of justice. And I guess I mourn that we may make mistakes in this area. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's worth it to say, well, we only make mistakes 1 in 1,000 times. That's one innocent life that we've taken because of capital punishment. But on the other hand, I don't want to say that I'm against capital punishment, because there have been times in my life where, I was a college student when a young woman on my campus was brutally murdered, and it was pretty obvious that the guys who did it were guilty. I mean, there are some cases where you do have a smoking gun. Mm-hmm. It's hard to, imagine that there's any mistakes being made in the guilt finding process. And my reaction was, these guys deserve to die. I want to see them punished this way because I believe that that is what their crime merits, And so I don't know if that's, if I doubt that side of myself because I believe it's an emotional response, or if there is some good rational case I could make for, in some cases, this is the appropriate punishment for our government to mete out. But I guess, I don't want to talk in circles, but those are some of the top line thoughts that I have.
Yeah, those are really all really good thoughts. I guess I'd probably begin my response by saying, the Bible clearly teaches that the institution of the magistrate or civil government does include the use of taking human life in certain circumstances. And this is why I simply cannot go with Pope Francis. I cannot go with the Roman Catholic Church, who has extracted the principle from the 6th commandment, you shall not murder, and turned it into this universal principle that all killing is murder. Simply not the case. In Genesis 9, God actually institutes capital punishment, not because human life isn't valuable, it's because human life is valuable. In fact, he institutes capital punishment in Genesis 9 precisely because the murderer is taking the life of an image bearer of God, right? So it's because human life is valuable, capital punishment is justified. The 6th commandment says you shall not murder, and then in the very next set of chapters, we find over and over again God telling the Israelites, you need to exercise capital punishment for this and for this and for this and for this and for this. So if all killing violates the 6th commandment, you have God talking out of both sides of his mouth in the space of 2 chapters. Okay, don't
And
believe
God
it.
does not lie.
Yeah, no. So you have to nuance.
And I
your
believe
view.
in, righteous war.
Right.
I believe that there's,
Right.
that's killing too.
Unless you're going to be
So-
an absolute pacifist, there's simply
Yeah.
no way to say all killing is murder. So there is a sense in which God does invest the authority to take human life to civil government. And this is in, I believe, that Romans 13, when it talks about the civil government exacting vengeance on the evildoer, for he does not bear the sword in vain. What is that image bringing about? Does not bear the sword in vain. The sword is an instrument of judicial authority and also violence. So I just don't think you can support a pacifist view in a reading of the Bible. But more directly to your concerns, Hadley, God has invested this institution with precisely this authority. And I think that answers the concern about, I want limited government. I look at the question and say, what is government's true job? Well, it's to do the tasks that God has invested it to do. And if one of those things is crime and punishment, up to and including capital punishment, then I don't, in principle, have a problem with that role of government or government taking that role. In principle. Now, in practice, sometimes things get messy. You're right. Big, bloated government can be subjected to all sorts of abuse, especially when they're granted the power of capital punishment. So the limited government question doesn't bother me so much, but the perfection one is probably your more important point. The God who instituted capital punishment in Genesis 9 and in the Book of the Covenant in Exodus and all throughout Scripture and in Romans 13 knows that we are not perfect. In fact, much of the laws in ancient Israel surrounding capital punishment was about process. You can't execute somebody without the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. God himself recognizes that this power can be abused, which is why he sets all sorts of parameters around it, all of which is to say is God's not expecting perfection. He does, however, want the power of capital punishment to be circumscribed by good due process. Okay, so he knows that. So I don't think perfection is a requirement to have a capital punishment. Clearly, it's because of the Bible's teaching on all of this that we have the system we have. I don't think people appreciate that as much as they do. The presumption of innocence, the right to a jury trial, the right to face your accuser, the right to know what evidence is going to be presented to you. Our whole court system is built on these principles that our founders found in the Bible. They were reading Exodus and Deuteronomy. This is how our system came about. So I don't think perfection's totally necessary in order to have it. All of that said, I'm against the death penalty.
Oh, wow. I don't have anything to add.
You weren't expecting that to come.
No, you just you left us all speechless for a second. You made a great case for it and then said, I'm not.
Well, I
for
can
it.
tell you why. I'll tell you why, because it is a judicial it's a judicial decree that is not applied equitably. It is a completely arbitrary thing. If we had a system of capital punishment in this country where committing crime X means you get the death penalty, and it was applied equally across the board to anyone who commits crime X, I could be in favor of capital punishment.
Deliberately taking another man's life.
Yeah, premeditated first-degree murder. If we said premeditated first-degree murder, if convicted of this, according to these evidentiary rules, you will be executed. If we had such a system, I would say that is a legal system that is applied equitably, and it is not arbitrary. Right now, it is anything but equitable. When you have the young black kid in Alabama who shot a store clerk in an armed robbery sitting on death row, and you have plenty of other murderers from other places and other demographics who never get the death penalty. It is an inequitable system and should be abolished. My point is, if we're not going to do it right, we shouldn't be doing it at all.
That is probably the single best, whatever it was, waxing poetic on the death penalty.
I don't know. I'm waiting to hear Hadley's reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear everything that you're saying. I think that the case that you're making for, the biblical explanation of why capital punishment can be sanctioned, I agree with that, and I see that point. And I also see the point that our system today maybe is wrongful because of its inequities. So, again, I don't feel comfortable saying I'm in favor of this or I'm against this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I just, the point, I really came around to this view, and I'll tell you when it happened. It was when I was actually working in the court system. Years and years, right out of college. I was a clerk of court in our local county, and we just had a case where a couple of paroled, hardened criminals were paroled, and they came to Billings, my hometown, and they murdered a prostitute in a hotel room, and it was just grisly. It was absolutely premeditated. It was horrible. The victim, the prostitute, was a Native American, and our county attorney very quickly decided that he would not pursue a capital case, and I was absolutely appalled, and I thought, if this is not a capital case, what is? If this is not a death penalty case, tell me what reaches your threshold, Mr. County Attorney, for being a capital case. What can I conclude? Oh, she was Native American victim? Suddenly, somehow her life isn't as valuable as somebody else's? What's going into this calculation here? When I saw the arbitrariness, you know why he didn't want a capital case? Because it's a lot of work. That's why. Much easier to cut a deal, and we'll just give them a life sentence. They'll plea out, and we don't have to go through the hard work. To me, that was an insult to the life of that victim. And I said, if we're not going to do it to these guys, we shouldn't be doing it to anybody. The end.
Here's a question. Brian, do you think that this is a good argument against capital punishment or not? Because another concern I have is that capital punishment is final. There's some finality that goes with it, and maybe that's not a problem. But for me, I know people who work in prison ministries, and I know people who their testimony is that they came to know Christ after committing a heinous crime.
Sure, happens a lot.
Through a prison ministry.
Right.
And so part of the heartburn I have about capital punishment is that are we as a society denying that person the opportunity to spend time incarcerated, that during that time they may have a change of heart and seek forgiveness and repentance in their life? Is that not a good reason? Because you didn't list that among any of your thoughts about it, and I just don't know if that matters or if I'm got something. I
understand. No,
wrong.
I understand. I think that the heart motivation of that question is absolutely right and admirable. I mean, we should be seeking the repentance and faith of people who are in that scenario. I don't think it's a good enough reason to say that we have to suspend the proper procedural, criminal justice principles in order to give somebody time to repent. First of all, they're going to have time to repent. I mean, we have a long process in this country of getting convicted of a capital crime and then ultimately being executed, right? I mean, you sit there for 20 years on appeal.
Sit on death row for a long time, yeah.
But the finality issue is if God sanctions this and, provided that due process is really being done and taken care of, the finality is not some sort of a silver bullet that undercuts all of that. It means that the God who has set up this entire system, and these are his requirements, is sovereign also over the person who's involved in it. And the finality ultimately is something that he would sanction. And I guess I would say, look, capital punishment, I guess in my view, is you are sending somebody on to his next appeal. And the next appeal is going to be the final one. And there's an urgency about that I think really does make a lot of people think about their condition and their relationship with God and what is on the other side. So I don't think that the finality of it is really an argument against capital punishment as such. In many ways, just because really in the providence of God, he handles that. That's not really our job, I don't think.
It sounds like Brian has found there's a reason in Brian's thoughts about this that has led him to side against capital punishment, and that is a matter of process, how we do it, that we don't do it correctly. And so I guess in my case, I haven't found a reason that is so compelling to me yet to come down on one side or the other.
Right.
And that's my summation of our conversation.
Jay,
Jay, what do you think? I want to know what Jay thinks. Jay likes to sit there.
I guess I would summarize it also as principle and practice, right?
Okay.
Principle, I agree with it. I think we should be doing it. Our practice is so wildly divergent from what the principle ought to be that we have a broken system, and we should just stop doing it unless we're going to do it right. Okay. Jay, what do you think?
Jay.
And then we'll close out the show after my comments, I think. I think, Brian, everything you said is really, really compelling and very, very thought-provoking. Hadley, my concerns are a little bit yours and a little bit not. I'm not concerned about the limited government thing. Brian has a really good answer towards the what about the potential restoration of the person argument as well. So I'm just kind of still unconvinced. I don't know. I don't know what side of the line I'm on. I would be afraid that if the practice was perfect, I wonder if I'd still be against it in principle, because I just don't like the idea of taking somebody's life intentionally. But I don't think I'm supposed to like the idea of taking somebody's life intentionally. I don't think that should be something that is palatable to us to a certain extent. I mean, that's not the way we were designed. That's not the way we were set up to function. It's to take life.
I mean,
but no, you're bringing up a great point.
I liked the idea when I knew someone who got murdered. I liked the idea.
I like
in that case.
Yes, in that. Yes,
but you're bringing up a great point, though, and I think that in Romans 13, I mean, when it's really talking about the role of the state, I mean, part of the state is God's minister of vengeance. I mean, part of the whole point of the criminal justice process is to show us how wretched and awful we are. And nobody's celebrating that there's been this outbreak of wickedness and sin that has resulted in these horrible, you get terrible crimes and victims and really affected people. I don't think anybody's supposed to be clapping that this has happened, but there should be a sobriety to it, right?
Absolutely.
We live in a really messed up world. And I, for one, I'm really glad that we live in a land where there is law enforcement, however imperfect it is, and that these things are dealt with at the judicial level.
I think I wouldn't like it, but I would if the practice was somewhat perfect. Knowing myself and my general propensity to submit to what I kind of feel is what Scripture's telling us to do, I would submit to it, but not like it. But I think that is, I mean, I think that is probably somewhat healthy too, though, that you don't like everything that God requires you to do. That's part of being under some semblance of having some Christian discipline and being subordinate to a higher authority. We don't know, but
right.
So
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's my perspective. Now, I do in my carnality, I generally do wish that people who commit those atrocities would just die. I mean, it's almost like there's no semblance in keeping them here. But I think that's more the sinful part of me than the actual Christian part.
I guess the real question comes down. It's interesting the grammar that you just used. It was the passive tense. I wish that they would just die. The question we're really talking through here is it okay to say more than that? Not that I wish they would die. It is, can I want somebody of authority to affirmatively kill that person?
Yeah.
Look, we say
Guys,
it in war.
I will tell you.
We say it in war, don't we? With ISIS, we say
I said it before with ISIS. Somebody needs to annihilate
somebody
ISIS.
needs to.
Like just no
some
mercy.
people. What is it? Some people need killing, right? And so, if we're willing to say it in that context, why not in the judicial context?
It's true.
But I will tell you, and this is a confession that I am not proud of, but when I was in college and this young woman was killed, I thought, it would be nice if someone would execute these guys, but I even had a thought in my anger, give me the gun. I'll go do it. You know? I was so angry because what they had done was so atrocious, you know, that there are times when I think we will feel that way, you know, and that's why I feel like it's my emotions that are betraying me in those moments, because with a cooler mind, I would say, no, I don't want to take the lives of these people.
See,
but
this is, I'm so glad you brought this up.
I'm going to tell you, I'm a sinner, and in my anger, I was tempted, by these sinful thoughts. Like, I want to kill these people.
But don't you see this dynamic is so beautifully addressed in the Bible? In Romans 12, Paul has this entire chapter about how do not take revenge, repay good for evil, do not take vengeance, leave room for God's wrath. Vengeance is the Lord's. Okay? Now, that just sounds like a recipe, like we're all just going to be a bunch of doormats, right? Like, oh, well, no,
roll
we
over
can't.
and take it.
Roll over.
Yeah.
The very next chapter is God has instituted an authority. No civil magistrate exists except by the will of God. God has instituted this authority as his minister of wrath to bring judgment and vengeance upon the evildoer. God has given us an escape hatch. He's given us a release valve, right? Because we feel the injustice. When your friend was murdered, this girl in college, you feel this well up within you. Justice must be done. God has set up a third party, an institution, whereby justice will be done, relieving us of this obligation. When he says leave room for God's wrath, sometimes the embodiment of that wrath comes from the civil government doing its job in criminal punishment. So I don't think that necessarily your impulse there that give me the gun, I don't think that itself is sinful. Longing for justice. Jesus says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice. It's the same word. It's usually translated righteousness. It's the same thing. I think that is an image bearer of God kind of impulse. There's been an injustice. It needs to be righted. But Paul says to us as Christian individuals, vengeance is not yours. Vengeance is not yours. That in no way mitigates the fact that God has established an authority to deal with those things, to bring justice in a tangible way. It's just, those are an amazing 2 chapters side by side in the Bible. I'd encourage people to go read it. It's really quite remarkable.
Wow. That was fun. That's
fun.
why I like doing this show. I mean, we can talk about something as real as Brazil, the death penalty, everything,
good topics
and
today.
still inject our faith into it really, really well. Yep. So thank you, guys. That was fantastic. We are out of time for the most part, so let's get the end. Thank you for joining us live. If you've been on with us, Hadley, where can people go to find you during the week until the next show?
I'd encourage people to follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Hadley Heath. And when I'm not doing Dead Reckoning, I have a job at the Independent Women's Forum. I can't speak for them here on Dead Reckoning Radio, but I do speak for them when I go on television. So you can find some of my television appearances on their website, which is iwf.org.
Brian.
You can find me at drbrianmattson.com, drbrianmattson.com. My public Facebook page is Dr. Brian G. Mattson. My Twitter handle is at Brian G. Mattson.
Very good. And if you'd like to find out more about Dead Reckoning, who we are and what we do, and this is about it, although we're always working on little side projects that we'll announce as they get closer, you can follow us on all of our social media accounts. You can find those at www.deadreckoning.tv. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've been experimenting with Snapchat a little bit, but we're not quite active on that yet. If you like us on iTunes or Google Play, please rate us.
5
You can listen
stars.
to us there. We'd really appreciate that. It helps us get into the algorithms and help people find out more about us. If you're interested in being a donor, huge thanks to our donors. All three of us volunteer our time on this. And we thank you for donating to keep us going, to help get the word out, help us pay for a few things every now and then, help us pay for the podcast, the storage, all that stuff. All that's donated. We appreciate you for donating to us. Again, you can donate to us at deadreckoning.tv. Special thanks to our sponsors today, Alliance Defending Freedom, defending your right to freely live out your faith, www.adflegal.org. Shoot them a note. Tell them thank you for supporting us. If you would like to sponsor us or know somebody who would, we'd be happy to hear from you. Email us at hello@deadreckoning.tv. If you want to give us some feedback, always there's the social media accounts, our email, hello@deadreckoning.tv. With that, thank you to Remley and Brian for producing the show, to Brian and myself for writing it, to Hadley and Brian for giving us the rain, for bringing the rain on the weekly topics. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. We will see you guys next week.